Welcome back to UCL Review, the show where we round up the biggest talking points from Europe's biggest competition. Joining me tonight, or this morning as you're watching it, is Henry Hill. How are you doing, Henry?
I'm good, thank you. I've had a haircut. I know every presenter's probably going to say that in the coming weeks. Mikey, I'm sure you'll follow suit too. And also, you very kindly... Yeah, and very kindly you gave me the PSG Bayern game to review for you tonight. So yeah, I'm very... As far as an evening spectacle goes, I'm pretty satisfied with what I saw.
Yeah, well, I was given PSG Bayern by Doogie last week, so I thought I owed it to another EFD head to repay the favour. And yeah, it was where all the action was tonight, as we would expect. What went down at the Parc des Princes, Henry?
Oof, all the action, but not quite as many goals as last week. But PSG got the job done. They've just about crept through to the semi-finals, as despite losing 1-0 to Bayern Munich, they obviously won 3-2 last week, so got through on the away goals rule. And big kudos to PSG. It's the second successive year that the French champions have reached the penultimate stage of the Champions League, having failed to do so at all between 1995 and 2019. So really asserting themselves as one of the European powerhouses after a few near misses, wasn't it? Sort of that Barcelona defeats when he hurt back to that. But yeah, I mean, going into this game, it was quite interesting because there was a lot of players missing on both sides. We saw both teams play quite tentative lineups in their weekend domestic fixtures. Bayern started their draw of Union Berlin on the weekend with Alaba, Pavard and Sané all on the bench, and PSG were roughly the same with Gana Gueye, Di Maria and Dagba versus Strasbourg missing. Obviously, Neymar was suspended for that too, which is actually a blessing in disguise. However, I'd say, looking at the lineups, probably it was affected PSG more than Bayern. We saw no Marquinhos, so Presnel Kimpembe was handed the armband, and he played alongside Danilo Pereira, who's normally a central defensive midfielder, but he snuck into defence. Then they had Dagba and Diallo either side, so probably not the kind of the best back four that they could possibly put out, but they did the job tonight. And for Bayern Munich, the big question was who was going to start up front again, and Choupo-Moting was given that nod. And with no Gnabry as well, he was missing completely. This was a huge game for Leroy Sané, wasn't it? To really kind of show what he's all about after a kind of indifferent season. But anyway, the game started kind of as everyone would hope to. It was interesting, actually, because obviously PSG versus Barcelona, they were very tentative in that second leg, but they really went after the game at the start. Neymar and Mbappe looked very, very dangerous, both kind of going close early on. Bayern limited really to shots from range from Kimmich and Sané. Before Neymar, I mean, he really turned it on. That first half was a real beauty from the Brazilian. He drew a good save from Neuer. Great work from Mbappe. Almost scored two stunning finishes. Great bits of skill. He hit the crossbar. Thoroughly encourage everyone to go check that out after some stunning, it's really beautiful skill. And then unlucky to hit the post a second time around. But they didn't take their chances. And then Bayern, against the run of play, did manage to sneak ahead. Thanks to, Eric Choupo-Moting. Not as kind of a stylistic header as we saw last week, but still he reacted first to a David Alaba shot and, beat Presnel Kimpembe in the air and scored. So, and it was quite funny because I think the commentators were saying how out of his depth he was by that point, and then he popped up and scored a goal. So yeah, less said about that, the better really. But fair play to him. And also Leroy Sané could have doubled the lead before half time. So Bayern going for it there too. First half finished with 14 shots with 7 on target, so kind of everything you wanted to see from that game. And it was more of the same at the start of the second. David Alaba went close, probably the last time we'll see him in a Bayern Munich shirt in a Champions League match. And Neymar was a whisker away from scoring after some brilliant skill once again from Angel Di Maria. The game kind of went into a bit of a lull there, but it set up a really kind of spectacular final 15 minutes, didn't it? Bayern pushed right up into the halfway line with their defence, which exposed them to a number of counter-attacks. There's some disallowed goal for Mbappe, thanks to a very, very tight offside, I must say. Müller had a shot blocked. They were throwing bodies into the box, but Leroy Sané, right at the depth, just couldn't pick out anyone in the box, passed it straight to Keylor Navas, and that was kind of that. And, really disappointing for Bayern Munich, but to be fair, Mikey, they had a lot of work going into this game, didn't they? They had a lot to do if they were going to get a result out of this.
Yeah, they conceded 3 away goals, didn't they? And whenever you do that, especially against a team of PSG's calibre, especially with that forward line that can catch you on the break so easily, it's always going to be an uphill task. And their defence, has looked far from perfect this season, hasn't it? They've already conceded 36 goals in the Bully with 6 games remaining. For comparison, that's the most they've conceded in the league since 2010-11. And I think if you do like goals per game conceded, you'd have to go back even further than that. So yeah, that back line, that high line, has been caught out a lot this season. It was caught out last week. It was caught out even on the weekend against Union Berlin later on. And then going forward, obviously that Lewandowski injury has really hurt them. I know Choupo-Moting has scored, twice in this tie, across this tie. And that, it's mad to think that he, also scored for PSG in that quarterfinal against Atalanta last season. So his record in Champions League quarterfinals is pretty bloody good. But yeah, he's just not Lewandowski, is he? He's nowhere near that level. In the last 2 league games without Lewandowski, they failed to hit the 1xG mark, which is pretty astounding for a side which last season was just, easily the most free scoring team in Europe. Good news for Bayern fans, he is back in training now, so hopefully we'll see him get back on the pitch in the next few weeks. PSG had their own troubles as well. Obviously, they're still off 3 points off Lille in Ligue 1, despite their 4-1 battering of Strasbourg on the weekend. But yeah, I mean, they were just, I think, just about the better side over the 2 legs. For all their attacking talent, they were really impressive in the midfield defensively. Idrissa Gueye and Leandro Paredes really held their own. 16 ground duels won between them, 10 tackles and interceptions between them as well. Had to be on top form because Bayern, as we'd expect, edged possession. Kimmich obviously is always a handful in the centre of the park, and I think they dealt with him pretty well. Whereas last weekend, I think he dominated proceedings, at least going forward. Bayern edged shots 14-10 with 5 on target to 3. But I think those stats actually signal that PSG had a pretty good night at the office defensively, considering Bayern were really having to go for it in those late stages. Neymar and Mbappe could only manage 4 shots on target between them. But Neymar in particular could have had a hattie this game, couldn't he? Especially in the first half, where he hit the woodwork twice, missed 4 big chances in total. So just had everything aside from that final finish. Largely restricted to chances on the break in the second half, after one of the best first halves you'll have seen from the Brazilian. But yeah, a very much improved performance defensively from both sides in general. Jerome Boateng was brilliant, 7 tackles and interceptions, made 3 clearances. He wasn't dribbled past once. Luca Hernandez also the same, 7 tackles and interceptions, completed a lot of long balls, 9 out of 13, won all his aerial duels. Very good last-ditch defending in that second half, especially as PSG pushed for that second goal. Leroy Sané, although I think he still doesn't look at his best, he did step up. He created 3 chances, completed 7 out of 8 dribbles, but yeah, that end product just still lacking from him. And I think I saw Doogie tweeting about it earlier that it would be great to see him playing off the left for Bayern, because I think that's always where he was best at his best for City, wasn't it? But obviously you got Kingsley Coman on that side and Serge Gnabry is out of the team. It's a little bit harder to fit him in there, but hopefully we will see Leroy Sané given a chance on the left in the coming months. Up next, Bayern face a crucial 2 games in the next 7 days. Wolfsburg on the weekend and then Leverkusen next Tuesday, awaiting the Bundesliga as they try to get over the line. PSG face Saint-Etienne in Ligue 1 this weekend. But Henry, what does this mean now for Bayern? Because obviously they'll be very disappointed going out in the quarterfinals, having entered the Champions League as clear favourites at the start of the season. You've got players like Alaba, like you said, who's going to be leaving in the summer. Jerome Boateng also sees his contract run out. Lewandowski probably only has a year or 2 left at the top of his game. And Hansi Flick, of course, is a favourite to take the Germany job in the summer. Do you think this is the end for Hansi Flick at Bayern, Henry?
Whoa, there's no smoke without fire, is there really? And it does look like he could be edging towards that job. I was reading that he's annoyed with the sporting director at Bayern about future transfer targets. Basically, it's been a bit of a reshuffle behind the scenes. The Germany job's a big deal. He was assistant coach there for a long time. He knows what it is to work for the DFB, and I think he could be really interested. And I mean, listen, the hammer blow, that Lewandowski injury in terms of this competition. And I still think they'll probably win the Bundesliga, but if he enjoys working for the German national side as much as perhaps the tabloids are suggesting, then I really think he could be really interested in that move. I read it today. Apparently it's his dream job. So yeah, I think this is a prime opportunity to manage Germany. They don't take me as the kind of employers who hire and fire managers at a strong basis. So it's maybe now or never for him to go. So yeah, I can see this happening.
Yeah, fair enough, Henry. Well, what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below. Can you see Hansi Flick leaving Bayern this summer? And if so, who would you have in to replace him? We've seen Nagelsmann linked with the job. Klopp even linked with the job this week. So get us your thoughts down below. And let's move on to Chelsea-Porto.
So the other game tonight was obviously Chelsea versus FC Porto. I don't think many of us gave Porto much of a chance going into this game. Mikey, you watched it. How did the Portuguese side get on against Tuchel's men?
Yeah, not very well. Let's be honest. Yeah, they didn't put up as much of a fight, which was a shame actually, because they were so gutsy in that last 16 tie against Juventus. But I think they just came up against a much superior side over the two legs. Obviously, Chelsea have been, at least going into the first leg, they were in shaky form, having lost that kind of freak game against West Brom 5-2, hadn't they?
Yeah.
But their victory over Porto last week restored confidence. They then put away Crystal Palace 4-1 on Saturday, and that was actually Thomas Tuchel's biggest win so far as Blues boss. Also, the first time his side had scored more than 2 goals, in a game since he took over. Porto came into this game off the back of a 2-0 win in the Liga NOS as they look to apply pressure on Sporting, who have been a bit out of form, haven't they? And they also welcomed back Mehdi Taremi and Sergio Oliveira from suspension, both key players for them, although Taremi actually started on the bench, which I think was a bit of a mistake in hindsight. We'll get onto that in a bit. As for Chelsea, Pulisic came in for Werner. He obviously grabbed a brace against Palace. Conte came in for Kovacic, who was out with a muscle injury, and Thiago Silva came in for Andres Christensen. But yeah, initially it looked like Porto were playing themselves back into the game. They had 60% possession for the first 25 minutes, but didn't really trouble Mendy once. And then Chelsea kind of came back into the game, began to dominate a bit more. So I think Porto didn't really make their dominance count in those early stages. And there were, very few chances in that first half. Havertz was put through at one point, tried to square it to Mount, but he was blocked by Pepe. Jesus Corona pulled off Chilwell from a long ball into the box. Really nice touch, but then he skied it. That was pretty much all that happened in that first half. Chelsea had 3 shots, Porto had 5, none on target. Only the second time that has happened in a UCL game this season. Second half, Porto did apply a little bit more pressure. They came out a little bit more aggressive. They pushed a lot higher. That left more space in behind for Chelsea to break. Pulisic should have scored from a Chilwell cross on 54 minutes, but completely fluffed it. That was pretty much the best chance Chelsea had all game. Mehdi Taremi then came on 63 minutes for Porto and registered the side's first shot on target within a minute, which really said to me that he should have been starting. Should have been there from the start. A much better focal point up front than what they had before. Then in the 3rd minute of stoppage time, put away an unreal overhead kick. Well, completely shinned it, but it was still beautiful. Span wonderfully into the top right-hand corner. But by that point, it was there were only 50 seconds left of the game. All in all, pretty disappointing night for Porto. Too little, too late that goal. But Henry, what a result for Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, they were always going to be favourites going into this, and certainly considering that kind of defensive strength we've seen from them under Thomas Tuchel. Let's scrap that West Brom game off the record. I think that was just an anomaly as far as it goes. But I mean, in Tuchel's 12 games in charge, they've only conceded 1 XG or more in just one game. That West Brom game, of course, and that's in a run that includes meetings with Manchester United, Liverpool, and Tottenham. And no surprises here, they limited Porto to just 0.61 XG with Mendy in goal, really untroubled until Taremi's, like you said, ridiculous kind of freak overhead kick at the end. Jorginho, as you said, brilliant in the midfield, made 9 tackles and interceptions in the first half alone, and then he won 73% of his tackles in total, so he kind of just bossed that game, didn't he? Really disappointing to hear that from Porto, sort of lack of bite at all. And Azpilicueta and Rudiger won 7 aerial duels each, with Rudiger making 9 clearances to boot, so clearly whatever training ground drama happened there is left in the past, a brilliant performance from him. And then Christian Pulisic fouled 11 times, which, the stats people out there will like to know that is the most any player has been fouled in the UCL this season. Really looks like Pulisic is turning on some form back end of the season there after a few question marks about where his place was going to be perhaps in this Tuchel era, so that's good to see from him. From Porto, very little penetration or end product, despite being quite decent defensively, to be fair. Wilson Manafa, he won all 6 of his tackles at right back and kept Mount and Chilwell pretty quiet. But yeah, I was hoping with Oliveira coming back and Taremi, they maybe have a bit more. Wasn't to be, but to be fair to Porto, I think that's a pretty good showing in the Champions League from them, isn't it? I mean, next up, Chelsea play Manchester City in the FA Cup semi-final, so no rest for them. They've got that on Saturday. While Porto get back to Liga NOS title race with a trip to Nastia now. Can they catch Sporting? Remains to be seen. Just quickly, McCubbin, Chelsea obviously will go into this game likely against the next round of the Champions League, likely against Real Madrid, maybe Liverpool if they can pull off a bit of a wonder performance. They're probably the favourites, aren't they, going into whoever they face in the semi-final? Or do you think that perhaps someone like Real Madrid could get the better of them? What do you reckon, taking from the game you saw today?
It's difficult. It's hard to take anything from the game we saw today because Chelsea didn't have to get out of second gear really, and it suited them really well because obviously they've got a massive game on the weekend against City, like you're saying. I think in terms of they've got all round, their squad is stronger than Real Madrid's and Liverpool's at the moment, I think. And I think that serves them in good stead. Obviously, Tuchel knows how to navigate these kind of ties really well as well. But I do kind of think, I don't know, there's something about Real Madrid at the moment. I think they're hitting really, really good form. And if they can put Liverpool away, I would still just about back them just because they've got those players who've been there so many times before. But I think on paper, if you're just looking at all-round squad quality, I do think Chelsea have the edge, so I think that will be a really fascinating tie if it happens. But that's all we have time for on today's UCL review. Stay tuned for tomorrow's, where we'll be covering Borussia, City, and of course Real Madrid, Liverpool. Henry, if they enjoyed this, where should they go next?
Go check out Transfer Talk from Eurofootball Daily. You haven't done that yesterday, and also ERU from the weekend to get all the biggest stories from Europe this week.
Love it. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye.